think you should do the intro.
I know. Okay, this is going to be weird.
Let's get weird.
This is the maiden voyage of the well-built series Morning Huddle Construction Show. Thank you for tuning into this one. This is recorded.
This is
not live.
Not live.
Though we're very much alive.
Very much alive and definitely still weird.
Definitely. Right. So we're doing all the normal stuff that way in terms of making it awkward. This is a brainchild that you and I have had for a few months, maybe longer.
Yeah.
And the thought process is, what if we do a show that's not about interviews? What if we do a show where we don't bring in experts?
Yeah.
But what if we do a show that's more just two guys talking, man, and you're sharing the stuff that we're passionate about, and maybe creating some cool educational moments for the audience.
Yeah, totally.
And a change up, a curveball.
Yeah.
So for the people who've been doing the huddle for the past 2 years, maybe a different kind of content.
Yeah,
that'll be fun for them.
And I've told you this, but I'll tell the audience this too, is it's also an opportunity for you to talk. You know, you've been interviewing the people that you've been interviewing, and
I think I talk plenty.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do, but we're all still clamoring for it, you know. So, So I think it'll be good, and I think we'll have some enlightening stuff along the way.
I appreciate that, man. I am. There's no doubt I'm hankering to have there are some topics I'd really, really like to talk about, and that I'd like this long form environment to really fully explore. That maybe we don't care how long the episodes are.
Yeah. Should we talk rules? Are there rules?
I'm not sure there are rules.
There might be a couple rules. When you say you don't care how long the episode is, maybe we should care a little bit about how long the episode is.
Okay, fine. Okay. In general, I think a target is an hour, maybe a little less.
That's a good rule. Target an hour.
Target an hour is good. Yeah. If we go a little longer, it probably means it was really, really good.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, maybe what I'm trying to say is that we're, in an environment where the live audience isn't there,
right?
Where people aren't sitting there looking at their watch like, I got to get back to work.
Yeah.
And instead we were, having the freedom and flexibility. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you got shit to do, maybe this will be too long for you.
Yeah.
Save it for a drive.
Hey, or mowing the lawn, or doing dishes. This is going to be good for all that kind of stuff. It's all right. It's learning on the go. It's conversation on the go.
Yeah. And we have some structure in mind for the conversation, and I'm going to jump right in on that structure. So the first thing that we're going to do is just do a check-in, because I think it's important for humans, being authentically human, to arrive in any conversation and be honest about it. So how are you doing?
I'm doing really, really good. Thank you for asking.
That's wonderful.
I didn't know that when you said we would talk about what's awesome and what's going on, that you would ask the question that way. And I noticed that it made me happy that you said it that way.
Cool.
Of how are you doing? And I am doing well. And I'm sorry to pull the rug out from under you on all this, but when you told me earlier, we'll talk about what's awesome and all that stuff, I did have to think about the Ravens and the fact that they just won and are going to the AFC Championship this week. So
cool.
That's not why I'm doing really, really good.
Cool.
That was the niceness of your question, but also, and also Lamar Jackson, and the Ravens.
Holy smokes. Yeah. Well, I can imagine.
I
can imagine.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm just happy that it appears Mike Tomlin has stopped having a full-blown panic attack.
Yes.
And things are getting maybe under control in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
I'm not sure, but I'll tell you what I told you before this weekend's game.
Yes.
I hope for you that you enjoy the rest of the football season.
Yes.
That you have a good time with that.
Yes, thank you.
That's the only hope that I have.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So independently, you have your own,
for you.
Right.
I want it to be.
Yeah.
I want you to have good days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes they're bittersweet.
Yeah.
I'll
Good.
No, that's it. But glad to hear you're doing well, man. That's awesome.
Yes. And how are you doing, Chad?
I am really well. I just finished a day that was back to back, through the course of the day, and I really feel like a lot got accomplished in those conversations. I met a couple of wonderful people that I'm really excited to learn more about and get more involved in their business. I really like a day where I have a good blend of time internally with our team, which we did this morning, which is my favorite part. I'm not even saying that's really the truth. Monday mornings are awesome.
Yeah.
I love that time that I get, with the individuals and with the group, and just making that feeling of connection.
Yeah.
That when you're an all virtual team of 6, that I crave that interaction, and I know I'm not alone. We've gotten employee feedback that it's really important time. So that's nice. And then with clients, which is that's where I'm passionate, so passionate about the people that we work with.
Yeah,
we are so fortunate. We work with the coolest companies, the coolest people.
We really do.
And then on top of it, have a little sales interaction.
Yeah,
which was fun.
The juices flowing.
Oh man, I got the juices flowing. Yeah, dude.
That's all it takes.
It's like right in the middle of the day, a little sales meeting that it was way better than a 2:00 coffee.
Yeah,
I can tell you that.
Nice.
Yeah, I had a buzz all afternoon, and I'm carrying it through to now, man, because I've been psyched for this conversation. So yeah, things are really, really good.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, man. So we have this topic planned for today that is something that means something very important, but also different, I think, to both of us.
Totally. And
that I'll put on the table, which is having an ownership mentality.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in what that means to you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so for anybody that doesn't know, I work with Chad, and I've been fortunate to grow from a project management role into a vice president role previously, and now working in this consultant role and senior consultant role. And one of the things that has continually served me in whatever role I've had is to treat the results of the business like they are the results of myself. And so an ownership mentality to me really means that, to the extent that you can control it in whatever role you're in, that the buck stops with you.
Mm-hmm.
That you don't let stuff slip by, that you don't make excuses for why those things happened that are under your control, and instead you're finding ways that you can improve them, and really going outside of your specific role and responsibilities to do that.
Man, that's awesome. That is, you just described, I think, many owners' dreams, to have that type of behavior happening through the organization, where I think the opposite of that is, if I could use just a simple term and call it employee mentality versus ownership mentality, is where the employee, where people look at their sphere of influence only. They think, hey, it's not my fault if the overall doesn't happen, if I did my job.
Right.
And furthermore, even worse, I mean, of course, I'm not great at my job, or I'm not perfect at my job, but look at everybody else. They're not perfect at theirs either.
Right.
So it's, instead of the buck stops here, it's the pat's the buck mentality. And I think those are cultures, not just individual mindsets.
Wow. Tell me more about that.
Well, so have you ever found that when you're when you walk into a certain group of people, that whether it's typically like within minutes, if not hours, that you sort of get a feel for like what the rules of this group are.
Yeah.
Like there are certain groups that I walk into and the language is my style.
Yeah. There's a little bit of, yeah.
And I'm like, I don't have to try hard on that one.
Yeah.
I can just swear.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Because
Yes.
And then there are other, because I swear a lot.
Yeah.
But there are other environments that I'll pick it up. Like we're not doing that here. You remember there was the one situation you were with me where I heard someone say a euphemism for shit.
Yes.
And I was like, I guess we're not swearing. I'm gonna have to make some adjustments on the fly here. Because I wasn't prepared for that. And so I think when you walk into a team that passes the buck, that there is something, and I really wish this wasn't the case, but I think there is something very natural and human to be like, oh, sweet, cool. We get to be in a place where, we don't actually have to do our stuff.
Totally.
For a lot of people. I don't want to say for everybody. And I think that you definitely learn. If you've worked at it over your career and over your life, you learn to despise that, and you learn to attack it and to run from it if there's nothing you can do to fix it. You learn to spot it and go, ew. But I think it's maybe normal for most people to look at that and be like, sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. And I think something that was going through my mind as you were talking too was the challenge of embracing that kind of mindset when the culture around you is the one that you just described, where passing the buck is totally okay. And where if that's the case, I think we would agree that usually that means that like the leaders in the business are doing that too. Right? Because usually if the leaders in the business are performing an action, naturally, the rest of the people throughout the organization are going to perform that action. And so it is really a challenge to have an ownership mindset as the senior project manager or the director of operations when the company around you is not rewarding that behavior or giving you much reason to really have that ownership mentality.
It's a very lonely feeling.
It is.
So it's way easier to embrace the lazy trait. That's probably judgmental. I don't mean it like that. But it's way easier to adjust down.
Yeah.
And take some of the pressure off yourself.
Yeah.
I think people with an ownership mentality can't stomach it.
Yeah.
I think if it's really ingrained, they think, and they're not willing to lower their own standards.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes, and this is complicated, man, because sometimes I think they like where they work and they like the people they work with and they've made friends there and they have loyalty and they're not somebody who wants to job hop.
Yeah.
Because by the way, that's also a part of the DNA, I think, of because they're not just me. The people they're focused on trying to do. So what I find often happens is that they continue to maintain that very lonely position as the only or one of the only truly accountable people on a team that is loaded with no employee, with employee mindset, as opposed to ownership mindset. And they shoulder way too much of the burden.
Yeah.
They carry way too much water for the company and for the people that aren't carrying their weight. And they eventually burn out.
Yeah.
They eventually find that they can't keep it up. And that's where it gets really sad because burnout is a real thing.
Yeah.
And it's somewhere in between and this is my opinion. This is not from a book or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
But it's somewhere in between, I think, anxiety and depression and just exhaustion layered in on top of that.
Wow.
And when you've reached that place, like good luck maintaining your ownership mentality.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so those kinds of cultures can eventually rob really, really gifted people with amazing futures who really want to do things the right way. They can rob them of their potential.
Yeah.
That's a really sad thing.
It is. It is. Yeah. And dealing with it and being sad or being fearful that you're not good enough is all very relatable, real feelings too.
Yeah.
And even when you're in a culture, our culture, I've told you this before, it's like super weird that everybody on our team like actually says what they need to say. And like that we give each other constructive feedback so comfortably, and that people are like owning the results that we're talking about on a weekly basis.
And we're not perfect.
And we're not perfect. Yeah, no, not at all.
And I think I don't, as the CEO, founder, person, I don't always set the standard that I would want to personally set. But I really do believe that my honesty with that, and my asking for help, and my improvements, rather than accepting that. Here's what we definitely don't do is sweep it under the rug.
Right.
And that's, I think, the only way to be imperfect and maintain a team of people with an ownership mentality.
It is. That's high integrity behavior.
All right, cool. I've got that going for me, which is nice.
Yeah, totally.
I'll take that. Thank you, man.
So I'm wondering, I gave from my end of, being an employee and trying to have that mindset, what it means to me. What does having an ownership mentality mean to you as the founder and CEO of Well Built Construction Consulting?
That the business is a direct reflection of you.
Tell me more about that.
That people have the understanding that everything they are doing is the company. That the way they do, there's that saying, right? The way you do anything is the way you do everything. That when they're thinking about their behavior, they're thinking about the actions, that they realize the repercussions of everything that they're doing will either make us a little better or a little worse.
Yeah.
And that having an ownership mentality means you care.
Yeah. So if your business is the reflection of a direct reflection of you,
mm-hmm.
How, because I imagine that there's a lot of construction owners and people listening to this that feel the same exact way, that when you say their company's name, they really feel strongly that it's them and their brand and all of those things. And I imagine that's relatable. And what I'm wondering is then, how do you take constructive feedback or hear things that may be hard to hear about the business in a productive way when it's a reflection of you as a person?
Personally?
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
is that's what I mean by that.
Got it. Oh, yeah.
You take it personally.
Yeah.
You do. And you should. And when I talk about having an ownership mentality, again, I think that the picture, and you do an awesome job of this, and it really, again, everybody on our team does. We're very, very fortunate that way. But that when you're doing anything you're going to do in a given day or week, you genuinely want to give it all you've got. Yeah. You want to deliver at the highest possible level, because you know that you're either making the company a little better or a little worse with that action, and you care. Which does make constructive criticism important.
Right.
It makes it, if you don't care, constructive criticism is not important. If you don't care when people say, hey, it'd be really great if you did X or Y or Z different, it's a very easy thing to let roll off your back.
Yeah.
So I do think you take it personally. And I think when I say take it personally, what I don't mean is get all upset about it.
Yeah.
What I mean is really internalize that thought, really evaluate that, and give consideration to the fact that, of course, it always depends on who you're getting it from.
Yeah.
But that assuming you're getting that constructive criticism from people that you love and respect and trust, that's a gift and will help you to deliver a better result in the future. So when I say take it personally, I just mean take it to heart.
Yeah.
Take it to heart, and then that feedback will make you a happier person because you'll be better able to execute in your role.
I think it was Adam Grant who said, when you realize you've been doing something wrong, if you dig in your heels, you'll realize you'll do the wrong thing for longer. And actually, by admitting that you're doing the thing wrong, as much as you want to be right, you're actually going to be right faster by admitting that you were wrong.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's now the trick is sorting through the feedback that matters,
right?
Sorting through the feedback that has value,
right?
And also, and having the internal, self-awareness is key to know that sometimes your first reaction is going to be to throw something out that's valuable, and vice versa. Sometimes different people struggle with different things. I am definitely on the side of like, nah, they're probably dumb.
Yeah. Got it.
Right. That's my first, it's my first reaction. My first reaction is I love the way I think. And so when I hear other things, I'm like, especially things that really challenge the way I think, my first reaction is to think that that's stupid. And it's so important that I know that's my first reaction.
Right.
And that's where it really starts, is recognition of your own patterns and the ability to say, oh, my pattern is that. My pattern is to throw out good ideas. So that's good for me to know.
Yep.
I just heard this thing. It made me mad. And instead of going with that, saying, let me sit with that for a bit.
Yep.
Because I'll bet you if it's a good idea, it'll grow on. If it's a good idea, I'll be able to stomach that.
Yeah.
And then there are definitely other people who are exactly on the opposite side, who are way too open to suggestion, who find themselves with a tendency to accept all of it as true. And that I feel for those people because that seems hard.
Yeah. I'm much closer to that end of that spectrum, as you
probably
know. Oh yeah. Yeah, the first thing I do when I hear feedback on something is my mind goes to, what's wrong with me? Why am I not good enough?
Wow.
That's the first place. But to your point, and genuinely over the last 6 to 8 months, what I've cultivated is the recognition of that.
That's it.
And that still happens. But one of our conversations recently kind of reminded me of it. But one of the things that, I keep in mind when I hear that is that it's all working towards the bigger goal. And it's, if I want to be that best version of myself, if I want to have that ownership mentality and do those things, then don't view those things as a correction that you're wrong. It's just look at the long-term goal and consider how it's going to help you get there.
I love it. But what I love most about it is the focus on recognition.
Yeah.
And I don't care what it is, whether it's receiving feedback or whether it's the way that you tend to work with clients or the way that you tend to sell or the way that you tend to have relationships with your loved ones.
Yeah.
There are patterns. We all have sort of typical ways of hearing things, seeing things, and doing things.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean that any of those things are wrong, but that sometimes they probably are.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay.
It's okay. Yeah. That's exactly right.
It's totally okay.
Yeah. That would make you normal and human.
Yeah.
And what's not okay is not caring about progress, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's a personal viewpoint that I'll put it this way. back to ownership mentality, that if you're going to have an ownership mentality, you have to want to be better.
Yes.
And if you don't care about being better, I can tell you you're not going to work at Well Built.
Yeah.
Like, I'm certain about that.
Yes.
And I'm also certain that I'm going to strongly recommend that you're not working at our clients.
Right. Yes.
And unless you have like a year and 4 months left to work, and we can,
Yeah.
and we can just be really nice and allow you to be there for a year and 4 months.
Totally.
But that's,
Special,
exception, not the, yeah, exactly. Those are special
circumstances.
circumstances. But I do want to talk about one other really quick pragmatic aspect of ownership mentality, which is an understanding of your connection wherever you are in your business, your connection to how the business succeeds.
Okay.
And that's there's a number. There are metrics that you impact no matter where you are in the company. And the metrics that I find myself talking about most are in order: revenue, which is how much you sell and how much you produce; gross profit, which is the amount of money that you make after doing the work. So in other words, you got to pay labor, you got to pay material costs, you got to pay subcontractors, whatever else goes into it, depending on your business. And then there's this gross profit left. And then finally, there's your net profit. And your net profit is basically gross profit minus overhead and all the costs that it requires to keep the doors open that don't have to do with directly performing the work. And I know that's 101 stuff, but just a little, overview depending on the folks that are checking us out. And my point is that no matter where you fall in your business, you're impacting one or more of those numbers.
Yeah.
And for people to understand that the receptionist plays a role in revenue, and people think, how does receptionist play a role in revenue generation? Well, the receptionist can do a really bad job of directing calls where they're supposed to go.
Yep.
Thereby allowing the company to miss out on opportunities that could have turned into business. There's a revenue connection. They can do a really great job of doing that and enhance their chances. They could do an amazing job of customer service and making people feel really good when they call.
Totally.
You know those companies. I know those clients. That when I call those clients, right? I call them. I actually have the cell number. I call the main line because I want to hear the receptionist, because that person makes me feel good.
Totally.
That person is making the company money.
Totally.
And they're also potentially even impacting GP, because if gross profit is also impacted not just by making sure that you're running efficiently, but also if you can sell it at a higher gross margin.
Totally.
Why would you pay more for something if you thought the company was that much better?
Totally.
Right? And if the person who picks up the phone makes you feel great, it's not worth millions, but I'd pay a couple bucks for that.
Yeah, totally. And a couple bucks
adds up. Compounded.
Yep.
Right? When your accounting staff makes people feel the same way, because there are some jobs that, like, the direct line is obvious.
It's the dedication to holistically following that mindset, like that. It's an aggregate that happens among the whole company when everybody's embracing that mindset that every little bit that we do, every little amount of ownership we take is beneficial.
That's right. And then that my personal income is going and should have a direct correlation with the health of this business.
Yes.
That I help to create, for good, bad, or ugly.
Yes.
And so when people demonstrate, and this would be the last thing I say about ownership mentality, but when people demonstrate an ownership mentality, they are focused on the health of the business as their priority, because they know that has direct effects, positive effects on their income, their bonus, their upward mobility opportunities, their resume, everything about that is a win.
Yes.
And they don't think, how do I get a raise? First, it's very reasonable and fair to think, how do I get a raise? But the first thought is, how do I create prosperity for the company?
Right.
That's how you know you're doing it right.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you doled out like the basics of revenue, GP, and net profit.
Yeah.
I know you said that's a 101 thing. And I would just say to all the listeners out there that the top information you can go out there and try to start getting if you do want to develop this kind of mentality is learning the basic financials of business. It really is. And for the owners, they're going to know it. But if you really care about the health of the business and want to adopt that mindset, I couldn't give any bigger recommendation than to just go learn and understand a basic income statement, basic balance sheet.
Where would you steer people to get that?
I would just go to YouTube and look up income statement basics, and same with
balance
sheet basics.
Yep.
And just start there.
And I might layer in cash flow basics for contractors.
Yes, great addition.
It's for every business, cash flow matters, but in construction, holy smokes.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a trade contractor, it can be brutal. Yeah, you're outlying a cash on materials that you had to get ordered and you're not able to bill for, and my God, and waiting for wonderful general contractors to pay, and just the cycles, the payment cycles in the industry are really, really tough. So understanding cash flow, I think, is part and parcel. But yeah, I think it's a great recommendation and something that I take for granted. It's been 20 years or whatever since getting that stuff. But
totally.
I think if you get it, truly get it, understand it, and talk about it as an organization, that's when you start to see really cool things happen.
That's literally the next thing I was going to say is then after you do the research and watch the videos and all that is to go practice with people around you.
Got it.
Find a buddy that you want to talk to about this stuff and what it means, because it's such an iterative process to learn it. The first time you learn it, you're going to be like, I don't understand this. And then the second time it's going to be a little better than the third time. Then you're going to take 6 months off from not really thinking about it, and you're going to come back to it and be really frustrated that you don't remember all of it.
Totally agree.
So just keep getting yourself out there, keep putting yourself in the position to understand it, because the first time that you walk up to your owner and say, I've been thinking about how we can decrease GP by buying out our materials cheaper and have a solution in place, that's the sweet sauce, right?
Yeah, the owner's certainly like, okay,
right.
You got my attention. How are we going to increase GP?
Yep.
They're impressed, even if you're wrong.
Right.
They're impressed that you care.
Right.
And they're impressed that you're working on it. So if you really do want to grow in your career, the thing to do is to get serious about figuring out how a business thrives.
Yeah. And
then make it your mission to help the business to thrive.
Totally.
And we talked a little bit about this negative culture, but having a culture where everybody on the team has an ownership mentality. As an employee, how does that feel?
It feels like weird, but so good. It's this confidence that the stuff that you are asking of other people and working with other people towards will get done. Mm-hmm. And there's this mutual agreement amongst everyone that takes a little bit of saying that to each other. I've recognized that there's definitely been a process of like us telling each other that, hey, I'm okay with feedback. I'm okay with this. I want to hear from you. I want to be clear. I want whatever to be better.
Right. I want to be accountable.
It's weird. And once you get past that initial conversation phase, then it just becomes like second nature.
Yeah.
Where you know what you need to tell somebody, you know what information they need to get, you need to give them. And if you don't, you know that they will come back to you and say, I need X, Y, and Z if you really want this to be done by February 3rd.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I like it. I'm just sitting here smiling, thinking about, well, we got to figure it out at 6 employees.
Yeah, right. I know.
We'll see how this sucker looks at 120.
I know. It is. It's a big difference, man. And I keep thinking about that too, and the size of our teams and the importance of having these tight knit teams. Even as we grow, having these tight knit teams that can continue to operate.
Yeah, but without silos.
Yeah, right.
It gets hard,
right?
And we watch it,
right?
We do it with our clients all the time,
totally.
And what I can say with a relative level of certainty is that we will have consultants helping us as we grow through that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important to eat your own cooking.
Yeah.
And we if we're gonna be outside experts are so helpful.
Yeah.
And it's way easier for someone else to see and communicate about the challenges and make things feel easier than it is. Than it is from the inside of your own business. I know from where I sit today, and Matt knows, like I'm almost awkwardly aggressive about being like, I am not supposed to run this company forever.
Yeah.
There are going to be people who have to run this company, and so, like I can get it from here to this point, but at some point there are going to be smarter people with bigger visions, or whether they're whatever it is, right?
Right.
Like all I'm saying is maybe there's a tie-in I can reach, right? I can stretch. Maybe there's a tie-in to ownership mentality where I think that another piece of it is owning where you're not, where you're strong and you're not strong.
No.
Do you know what I mean? And being able to say, like, you're asking me to do a thing I'm going to fail at.
Again, it's all about the health of the business. And if that's how you're looking at what will be the healthiest thing for the business.
Right. What shame is there in calling that out?
There's really not. The shame is when everybody else is talking about it and don't know how to talk to you about it.
And when you get when you're like, sure, I can handle that, Google. How do I do that?
Yeah, right.
Let's just be candid about it. If you're going to Google it, that may even be okay. Just let's be honest about that. Hey, just FYI, I don't have experience in this and I'm going to need an education on it. I'm happy to take it on, but I also want the expectations to be appropriate.
Right. Totally.
Anyway. All right. Let's move on. That was awesome. That was a really fun conversation. Yeah, I hope they think it was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll think
so. Yeah.
They'll love it.
They love it.
Yeah, people love
it. They're already saying
it. They're already saying great things. So the third agenda point is what do we call it, Matt? It's a part of the show. It's a
segment.
It's a segment. These are segments. There are 4 segments, Matt.
Follow I love it. It's an agenda. Now it's a segment.
It's a segment. Cool. Let me walk you through.
Yeah.
Here's how a segment works.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Okay. This is a segment that we're going to call XVY.
All right.
Okay. And XVY is where we take on hot topics in the construction industry that are typical sources for debate. And we have our say on them. And I don't know where we're going to fall, but I hope that we fall in a place where there's reasonable debate.
Got it.
So, maybe you should go first so that I'm not so influential that you just agree with me.
I think that sounds good. Yeah, I think it's possible that could happen. Although I do have an opinion about this topic that we're going to talk about.
All right, good. Awesome. I can't wait. So the topic is,
should project managers learn to estimate, and conversely, should estimators learn to project manage and have both skill sets, or should you put them into 2 separate groups?
Yeah, well, I'll take that's a question. I'm going to take and put a little finer point on it, Matt, if that's okay, and say the question to me really is, in your org chart, should estimating be done by the PM? In other words, should there even be an estimating department? Should there be PM estimators, period? Or should there be an estimating department and a PM department? I did a post on LinkedIn on this that was really, really fascinating to hear people's thoughts. And they were all over the board. And I want to know where you fall on this question.
Totally. So good. Yeah. Thank you for the clarification. So we're talking about, should there be an estimating department in your org chart? Pretty much that's really the question.
That may be a really good simplified way to do it.
Because there's going to be a project management division.
You're going to need to manage projects. And you're going to need to estimate. But sometimes estimating gets handled by project managers. And I see that in a lot of org charts.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So, I've worked in the industry, and obviously I've seen a lot of companies, and my initial thoughts are that everybody should know both sides. Everybody should know estimating and project management. Full stop. It's just beneficial. It's the way I learned to estimate was to project manage, and I became a lot better project manager by getting good at estimating too. So like the two skill sets you absolutely need. In terms of whether or not you should have one in your organizational chart, I hate to take this stance. I actually really do. I think it depends on the complexity of the scope that you're doing.
Oh, he's whipping out.
It's just the truth of what I think.
All right, so let me can I lay out a theoretical for you?
Yeah, please.
All right, so let's say $50 million trade contractor. Okay, average project size $1 million. $50 million trade contractor, average size $1 million. One office, not spread out geographically. Let's go MEP.
So you're talking about 50 projects running every year at $50 million average contract size. See, man, I gotta believe that to run that machine, that you're gonna want an estimating department that focuses on getting the work, and a project management department that focuses on doing the work.
So you're gonna have separation on that team.
I would.
You're gonna have cross-trained people.
Yes.
In your world. But you're going to have separation between the two departments. There's going to be a PM group and an estimating group.
Absolutely.
And now let me change a variable just to kind of gut check. Same top level statistics. Average project size is $10 million. So they're doing five projects a year.
Yeah, then you're probably a full service person, of estimating and project management. It's interesting, and in either of those scenarios, one thing that I'd like to throw out there is it's happening already, but I truly believe it's going to continue to happen more and more, is that the pre-construction department for trade contractors is going to be so important in the future, because drawings and specs are continuing to be not up to a high enough level. So there's more of these unofficial design assist scopes going on all the time. And so part of pre-construction to me is going to be BIM and VDC. It's going to be CAD. Agreed. It's going to be engineering. It's also going to be cost estimating and making sure that you can actually build the stuff for what the stuff is saying it's going to cost. There's such a design development aspect to all of that stuff. And so when I think about an estimating department, I think that they're falling within a bigger pre-construction department that is going to continue to be extremely important to have a really high functioning pre-construction department.
Man, I really like that answer. It's really, really cool. I'm gonna challenge a couple of thoughts, please. I think, but just know
I'm influencing you now.
Warm heart, general agreement.
Yeah,
I like that. That's good. That's really good. But here are a couple of nuances, or I guess differences in my response. I'm kind of with you on the job size thing. The more projects we have to move through the machine, the more we really do need to have an estimating side of the business that's constantly pumping out bids. So that what we don't have is the typical contractor cycle of like, I'm slammed, I'm not estimating any work. Oh, I'm seeing my backlog diminish. I got a bid. Oh no, I got nothing going on. All I'm doing is estimating. Oh, finally we won a couple, right? And when you break that out, that business is not profitable because there are periods of time when overhead's not getting covered,
right?
Because so that's the case for having a consistent estimating presence.
Yep.
I think the fewer projects you need as a company, the less important it is to have an estimating machine.
Right.
But man, do I totally agree with your assessment of the future of the pre-construction world. So here's my perfect world. My perfect world balance is there's a project management team that does estimate their own work. There is an estimating department that reviews and approves and makes sure that the estimates as they leave the house, as they and I'm working on trade contractor right now. I'm going to swing back around to general contractor in a minute, okay? But like on the trade contractor front, there's an estimating department that's a relative. But I love what you said. pre-construction department that's actually doing more than just reviewing bids and making sure that they're right, but maybe they're also involved in the largest projects where a PM is not going to estimate that, but they may pull in PMs to advise and to review, pieces of this. But it's collaborative.
Totally.
Man, I'm painting a pretty utopian picture.
I'll be honest. Pretty fired up.
It sounds great, yeah. and it is doable. These things can be done, but it's hard.
Yeah.
And you probably have certain audience members that are thinking like, we're not that big, we're not, and that's cool. You may not be there yet.
Yeah.
I think that there are life cycles in a business where it totally does make sense early on for PMs to estimate their own
totally
work.
I think that's a great point.
And then you get an estimator, kind of thing, and man, that helps to keep the work moving in. But anyway, back to my utopian vision. So project managers who do estimate their own work in general, but they don't have to estimate all their own work. There's an estimating department that's also going after stuff, but they're getting advice from the project managers as well. And they're the quality control on the estimates that leave the house to make sure that we're not doing anything dumb, either too high or too low, right? Because project managers have a tendency when they're estimating work to be like, that's going to take forever.
Yeah, totally.
Right. And estimators have a tendency to be like, we'll be cool. I got to win the work.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
And I think it is good to have that, yin and yang, right? It's just a good, healthy dynamic. But if and when things slow down, you have PMs that can totally help in estimating, and it becomes a very flexible, kind of environment. For general contracting, I feel like my answer is almost identical, but it's really important to note this. Oh man, general contractors are going to be mad. Maybe I shouldn't say stuff that polarizes people. I'm going to skip it. No, I'll say it.
That's not one of the rules.
That's not one of the rules. Not one of the rules. Okay, there are only none. So
no, there's one rule. Well, it'll be kind of almost about an hour. Yeah, it'll mostly be an hour. Yeah.
Fine. So, general contractors, what their job really is subcontractor qualifying, communication, relationship. The only thing they have to estimate on their own really is general conditions. They have to understand how long will this project take for us to build, and how many resources are we going to have on this project to build it correctly, and all the resources and everything else that gets lumped into the general conditions bucket. Because other than that, it really is subcontractor control and management. And now you might think that I'm making the job sound easier. In fact, it's way freaking harder, because they're managing hundreds of relationships. And in my personal view, that is a department. Mm-hmm. That is a damn department. And it's a required sort of step. So if I were again, I'm still cross-training, and my PMs still do estimating, but they are assigned estimating workload by the estimating department.
Yeah.
And they're pulled in to say, hey, can you handle site work on this one?
Right.
Hey, can you handle Division 10?
Who do you think should handle buyout in that scenario?
That's a whole other debate.
Yeah.
I am not prepared to answer that. My answer is not going to be. I really do think this is a whole episode. I think there's a lot of conversation on how buyout should happen. He's writing it down. We're going to make sure that happens. Mm-hmm. But I will say my simple answer is the best path forward for buyout is to have collaborative input that is really considered by whoever's handling procurement.
Yeah.
And then I do think that by and large, it's good when one role consistently handles buyout.
Yeah. And that's a separate function from estimating.
Totally separate function from estimating. But it could be the estimator. Could be. It's just not an estimating function.
Yeah.
Yeah. But procurement is different.
Yeah, totally.
And but man, estimators don't get their voices heard nearly enough.
Yeah, totally true.
And imagine having to balance hundreds of relationships and those relationships be like, hey, thanks for hooking me up on the last one, asshole, right? And the estimator being like, I really don't decide.
Yeah.
That sucks.
But I'd love to have your input on the next
one. Right.
Yeah.
But also the bid deadline's Friday.
Yeah.
Good luck, man.
Yeah. Totally.
It's not how it works.
Totally.
It's, so, and this is why that can be a really difficult job. But I will say firmly that if you're even a small to mid-sized general contractor, you need an estimating department.
Yeah.
Because you definitely need more subcontractors than somebody can possibly manage if they're also running work.
Yeah.
It's just, otherwise what happens is they have their guy in every trade, right? Which sounds neat, but there are all kinds of impracticalities to that.
Yeah.
Different episode, different day.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. This was fun.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
All right, so let's go to the fourth segment. I feel like we're about an hour-ish.
I feel like it could be about somewhere in that range.
And it's in the zone.
Yeah.
It's in the zone. What are you reading, man?
I am reading right now a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Very zen.
Yeah, that's kind of up my alley these days. So. and what are you
Well,
reading?
hold on.
Yeah,
hold on. You don't get to just say,
well,
what are your biggest takeaways so far?
So I've been on my own wellness journey, as you know, and finding balance in my life and really trying to figure out where anxiety comes from for me. I've always carried a lot of anxiety. And one of the things that one of my mentors helped me realize was that I was always looking at the next thing. I was looking at the ideal version of Matt and saying that today I am not the ideal version of Matt, and therefore I am not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a very, hard place to be.
Yeah.
It's kind of like looking at the horizon and you're always trying to get to the horizon, but the horizon's just like a mirage. It's not real. The ideal version of yourself is not real. And so one of my greatest takeaways from this book, The Power of Now, is really that the past is a story and the future is not here. And all that we ever have is now, is the present moment. So to be in now and to be worrying about the future is a shame, because you're in now, right now. And there's nothing you can do about the future, because all you're ever in and all you ever have is right now. And so that's a very calming and centering thought for me, because I'll often look at those past, future, instances and really cling on to them.
Yeah.
And just remembering that that I'm here right now, and that I can go to those places and I can, take on the thoughts and tell myself the stories and all of that and see what that feels like. But that ultimately all that I have is right now. And that's been a really good calming thought for me, and a practice that I've just been using as laying on the ground playing with the dog, and knowing that I need to get up and work on the next thing, and just being like, cool, you need to, and you're gonna in like 5 minutes. Can you just enjoy playing with the dog right now?
Yeah.
So it's been really fun. It's weird and it's hard, but it's fun.
It does sound both weird and hard.
Yeah.
Matt, I know you know this, or at least I hope you know this, and I probably don't say it enough in different forms, but I really do appreciate the your own work on yourself. I find personally inspirational, and I've learned a lot from, which has been cool. And building balance has been a lot of fun for me to keep up with. That's Matt's newsletter. It's a really great weekly message that usually in some way is going to revolve around how to be both awesome at your job and happy.
Yeah.
And that maybe if that's a simple description,
it is
in the construction industry. And I think that's it really is in the essence maybe of what you deliver every day. which is awesome. So
yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't like that book.
Yeah. We did have a conversation about this book where Chad, he's got some good points. There's some good points.
There's a reason it sold 76 trillion copies.
Totally.
There's obviously power in it, and maybe it just didn't meet me at the right moment and in the right mindset. And maybe I had exposure to other stuff that was similar enough that it felt redundant or
Totally.
Those types of things. So I want to make sure I say that but I am also wired differently, and find that like what goes on in my mind is like, so is this an argument against having like goals and a plan?
Totally.
Because I can't buy into that, and I don't think if we had Eckhart Tolle here that he would be saying don't have goals, don't have a plan. But I think he would probably be saying don't obsess over either of those things.
Right.
And I can totally buy into that, but there's something about the complexity of getting to that message that I found challenging in that book.
Totally.
Because I was like, just now is good, right? Like I agree. Now is great. And worrying too much about the past or the future is dumb. That's a really good message.
Totally.
But again, I'm glad that it's making an impact for you. That's cool.
Yeah. No, and totally. And I struggle with those same things when you're talking about the present moment, and the conversation we had about it last week was awesome. And, I think one thing for anybody that does struggle with it and is working through this stuff for themselves is just stop worrying when it gets to the point where it's no longer productive.
Yep.
And, you had said to me, you're like, you like to go down some of those rabbit holes in your mind and see what it feels like. And I think I was resisting that a little bit. And that helped me kind of see, there is value in doing that. But you do always want to, as soon as you're getting to that point where now you're just stressing about it for no reason.
Yes.
That's when you got to stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's when you should stop.
There's no reason to put yourself in a negative frame of mind now based on what happened in the past or what you're worried about in the future.
Exactly.
If it impacts your mindset and makes you negative, that's dangerous.
Totally.
That's dangerous. Like good stuff doesn't come from bad places.
Totally.
It comes from good mindsets.
Totally.
Anyway, good stuff. I'm reading 33 Strategies of War, which I may be reading for like another year because it's 7,000 pages long. Like it is unbelievably long. And thank God it's in Kindle version, because I swear to God, if I were going to get the book out in the evening, it'd be like thud. Like there's no way. There's no way I'd be like, where was I on this? I was at page 3 pounds. I was 3 pounds in, But it's by Robert Greene. It is not a common read for me. I'm generally not pro-war, right? Like I think of war as a bad thing, programming, all that kind of stuff. And I'm learning so much from the book in terms of mindset toward challenges, and definitely specifically against enemies. And here I sit and I'm like, I don't really have enemies, but and so I think that's been a key takeaway for me from the book. I told you I have to read this book through the lens of like, these are all really smart if there's an enemy.
Yeah. If you're at war.
If you're at war, and if there's not an enemy and you're not at war, maybe these aren't the right tactics.
So what's an example of a strategy that you actually that resonated with you a little bit more, even in like the business world, as opposed to
probably the importance of intelligence and knowing what your enemies are doing, right? I can take that and broadly apply it in the construction industry and in business, and think about it in terms of the competition. Enemies is harsh,
right.
That's our competition aren't our enemies unless they're the kind of competition that has done terrible things to us.
Or by and large not the case.
Agreed. Yeah. By and large not the case, but I do think that there's some value in. Bottom line is, making sure that you are constantly keeping up-to-date intelligence on what your potential enemies, what your potential adversaries, right, have going on and laying out lots and lots and lots of lines of communication. And I think about the most successful clients that we work with, and man, they have intelligence networks.
Yeah.
They really do. They have coffee, once a month with this enemy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With this competitor, and they talk to their suppliers all the time about what's going on, and they talk to us and trying to gauge like what's going on broader in the market, and big picture, what are some of the things they're just constantly pulling intelligence that is about the market, that's about their competitors, that's about their customers, that's and all of that intelligence gives you the ability to have grand strategy. And that's probably my other biggest takeaway, is the idea of having a grand strategy. And the grand strategy essentially just means that you're not in the pursuit of small victories. Today you're in pursuit of the big picture. You've got a vision. And so today, sometimes that might mean that you make decisions where you lose, or you intentionally lose, because actually intentionally losing is going to put you on a better path toward your vision. And I find that particularly useful too, because because instead of like arguing and fighting and winning a debate over a $60,000 change order, which is a lot of money, but damaging a relationship forever, as an example, which, I mean, it's just making a general statement there, but like being able to think beyond the immediate and into the future.
Which, by the way, is totally when you're caught up in your emotions and acting, in ways that you're not really intending to act. Like all those things we're talking about with being in the present moment and all of that too. Like you need to learn to control that, so that when you are in that moment, that you can see the big picture.
Yep. I think that's right. So, yeah, I if anybody's interested in that book, I would recommend it with the cautions that I laid out.
Yeah. I really liked what you said to me about it last week too, to the context that when you're making a hard decision too, to look at that long-term master strategy and think, does this move us further or closer towards that?
That's exactly right. And so that is more maybe like a strategy of life and not just of war.
Totally.
But that is, again, the disclaimer is that it is a book about war, and not everything is war.
Yeah.
So I don't like how some of the things make me feel when I think about applying them, because I'm like way more plain dealing than that.
Mm-hmm.
But I also understand that if you're not dealing with somebody who's acting in good faith, that these are probably good tools.
Yeah, totally.
That's all right, man. I think that's what we got.
I think that's what we got.
This has been a lot of fun.
It was.
I feel like maybe my favorite way to end a work day.
You're already proclaiming that?
I mean, I'm a pretty black and white guy. This was the best.
You did. You did have that one sales call at 2:00.
I did. Oh, you're right.
You're still buzzing off of that.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah. Thank you, man, for pushing and encouraging and making sure that this thing came together. Thinking about the possibility of not having had this hour-long conversation with you makes me sad.
Yes.
So I'm really glad that we did it. That we did this.
Me too. Here's to many more good ones.
All right, man.
Cool.
Thank you, guys. Hope you had a good time checking out this episode. Hope that you'll join us for future episodes of the Morning Huddle Construction Show, and specifically the Well-Built series. Love to hear your feedback if you have anything to add. I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors as we wrap up today. We're fortunate enough to have Katz Abosch, which is an accounting firm that specializes with construction companies, as a sponsor. Strongly endorse the accounting group at Katz Abosch. They are not only great accountants, but they're great consultants and good coaches for your business. That's something to definitely look into. I could say the same thing about Lawrence Law. Their legal team knows construction inside and out. And whatever you're dealing with, if it's a dispute or if it's just contracts or normal course of business, that team at Lawrence Law is going to make you feel like you're their most important client. They certainly have with me in the past. So I strongly endorse them. Sandy Spring Bank, which is a really fantastic regional bank based in the DC metro area. That if you are a contractor and you are not loving your banking relationship, there's an opportunity to improve. Sandy Spring Bank is they really do think like a business owner, so they've got ownership mentality for sure, and would be a good partner. And then lastly, I want to recognize the sponsorship from Marsh McLennan Agency. And this is, they have so many talented people who are advising contractors every day on bonding issues and on insurance issues. I can't endorse these folks enough. I could make a list of all their wonderful people. If anybody is looking for an intro, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help. But they are top notch in this business. So with that, I will wrap us up and look forward to seeing everybody next time.